Call this meeting to order. I don't have much for remarks, although I'd like to say thank you to the deputy mayor. I was not able to make it in time last night to get to the meeting about the emergency room at the Clinton Hospital. So deputy mayor filled in for me on that. Hope there's more information later or not, but thank you. We would like to acknowledge that the land we stand upon today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the neutral peoples. Can I get a mover and a seconder for confirmation of the agenda, please? Moved by Councilor Morrison, second by Councilor Deal, that the agenda for the regular meeting of council dated October 1st of 2024 be adopted as circulated. All those in favor? Motion carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest from any member of council this evening? Seeing none, can I get a mover and a seconder for the minutes of the previous meetings? Moved by Councilor Wilby, second by Deputy Mayor, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East approve the following council meeting minutes as circulated. That's the regular meeting of September 17th of 2024 and the public meeting of September 17th of 2024. Any comments or questions on those minutes? All those in favor? And motion carries. We have a consent agenda. Are there any requests to remove any of the items from the consent agenda at this time? Seeing none, can I get a mover and a seconder to accept those items? Moved by Councilor Chartrand, second by Councilor Newell, that the consent agenda items 6.1 to 6.5 be received for information and approved. All those in favor? And motion carries. Number 7, public meetings, hearings, and delegations. 7.1, Frank Stratton, the Brussels Pickleball Multi-Use Court Project. Frank.
Thanks, Mayor Bernie. Here East councilors, I thought it was a good time to update you and to make a couple requests to get this project on the go. First of all, I want to talk about phase 1. That's the resurfacing of the existing court. At the present time, we're finding a safety issue because of the surface of the court is getting rough, the asphalt. People their shoes are tending to stick on the surface and we're having people fall. Fortunately, we have nothing but bruises and scrapes so far. Last night we had a lady fall and she was not injured also, but there's always that time when someone's gonna break a bone or hit their head or whatever. The last time I couldn't answer the question regarding the court. The court will be when they put on the surface, it will be pickleball courts plus 1 court for basketball is going to be there. At the present time, we're asking Huron East to be a 50-50 partner in this particular phase. We got a new price just today on what the price will be for next year. Of course, it's up a little over $1,000. It's up to $16,834. Okay, our club has right now raised about $8,400 towards that particular part of the project. Okay. Now, phase number 2 is going to depend on the New Horizons grant for seniors. And at the present time, that grant is up in the air. We have, when Brad Knight and I put this project, put together the application, we submitted it on the form, on the platform that was outlined by Service Canada. However, unfortunately, when we submitted it, we didn't get any confirmation numbers and whatever, and it was lost in cyberspace. At the present time, we don't have an application in, but I do have Ben Lobb's office working on seeing if they can get anywhere with Service Canada. I was unable to get very far with them. If that grant were approved, we would probably start in April of next year. And hopefully be done by the end of June or early July. If it's not approved, we would then be delaying that phase to 2026. Okay, we're also looking at doing some fundraising a little bit this fall and again next spring as a pickleball club towards the project. And one thing that I have found is I've done some searches around grants, and I found a new one that we can apply for in February. It's the Ontario Seniors Community Grant, and it's for nonprofit groups, which should fit, and it's for any activity that supports active living, interaction with seniors and so forth. So we're hoping our project would be a good one. The application closes at the end of March, and they do make a decision in early May. So if we were fortunate enough to get that, then we will go ahead with the project. All right. The other request that we have of council is to be our banker in this particular project, so you can hold the funds. We would be, as if you were in favor of that, then our chair would bring over the funds that we have raised and because they have securities response in it. Okay. So I guess I'm open for any questions now.
Any questions of council at this time? Councillor, sorry, John. Stanford. I just got back from holidays last night.
Thanks, Mayor, appreciate it. Hi Frank, thanks for coming in and much appreciated. What's the cost, approximate cost for phase two?
For phase, well, the total project of the whole thing will be, we're thinking is gonna be around 39,000. Okay, for the whole thing, so.
25.
Yeah, so, yeah, so right now, and that's the grant that would be applying for would be 25,000.
Thank you.
Any other questions, council? Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to Jessica or Brad, please. Could not this request for phase one be covered with our parkland reserve?
The short answer, sure, it could. But I think we have a staff report that sort of, speaks better to it than just being on the fly.
Just what, sorry?
We have a staff report.
Yes.
So Lisa has a report later on that speaks to the recommendation she's projecting for it, but certainly, if council wants us to put the dollars towards our capital plan, you could.
Well, I was listening to that report and it suggested waiting until you get a grant, but if people are falling down and blowing ankles, I think we would be prudent on our part to use parkland reserve, especially when we're supposed to spend 60% of it each year.
Well, we've allocated most of it already as part of our other projects, so but there's no reason why if council so chose that they could add that to it.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for you to Frank. Just want to talk about the resurfacing part again. I think you told us before, but what does this involve? Is this, you got this price of $16,000. Are there many other companies that do that, or could the local company do that? I mean, obviously you're going to.
I think this is pretty specialized. The company we've chosen is the one that did the project in Godrich.
Okay.
So that's how we got the connection with it. We certainly could look at another price. We could find somebody. This company is out of Australia, so I'm doing it, so.
Yeah, I just wondered if there's somebody more local, or obviously you can get a just the competition, that's all.
We don't know if anybody locally for it, so, okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Sharkey.
So do they resurface the current top, or they actually take the current top out and put brand new?
No, the current asphalt, they will level it, okay, and fill any holes. If there are any cracks, they fill those in. And then they put four coats of this synthetic material
Right
on
on
top of it, yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, council? Frank, we really appreciate you showing up, and we really appreciate the fact that you're showing the community support to begin with raising 50% of the money right off the bat. So that certainly helps us when we start making decisions also. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
We are down to number 10, reports and recommendations of municipal officers. The first one, CAO for the council committee review.
Not much for me to add, but I know there was a request at the last council meeting to bring back, for discussion primarily, the council, those meetings.
Any comments or questions from council this time? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'll start it off. I was the one that asked for this. We're 2 years into this new, setup that we have. I just want to know if the council feels that they're getting their money's worth. Getting the information you need, getting any sort of feedback, or do they have any feedback on the current situation that we have now, or the current committees? I mean, there's been some lapses and some different things that have come up that we still had the committee in place, different local committees in place that might have caught that. But I just looking for comments, that's all.
Hey, I think the only comment I have is that, and I'm not trying to put on any committee, but, I've used one that I have as an example, is that, I know the rec boards would have discussions, but we didn't necessarily get the reports back here, and those discussions were probably not needed by council, for things that were going on. They were always trying to operate within their budgets and stuff. So I'm not sure that we're missing any information that we were getting in the past. You may, in fact, have different examples of things that, were getting passed on from time to time. I don't know of any in particular right now. I've not heard from the public other than, the one about the health center. They said it was really easy just to deal with a small board because of the fact that they only have a small group, and if the group said, okay, we'll make the changes you want, it carried on that way. Where now it's a decision of all of council to look at it from a financial perspective more than anything else. But other than that, I'm not aware of any concerns from the public, that we're missing out on things. Councilor Chartrand?
The only, board that I heard, that they wish would come back is the, fire board. They feel that that would be their connection to council, where I guess they only met, Bob, you were on that board, how long did you?
Just twice a year,
Twice
was
a
it?
year, but at least it was a format where, 3 fire departments could meet together and talk and have that link to council. That's the only one that I've heard.
I need to ask a question. So was it, each board had a council member that met twice a year, or there was twice a year that they all got together and there were board members there that brought the information back?
Separately, we met twice, March and November with the Seaforth Department, the 2 Seaforth councilors, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I'm not sure about,
Brussels or Gray?
Brussels and, Gray, what their situation was.
It could be one, now it could be all 3 together if they wanted to continue.
CAO?
Sorry, that's kind of what I was gonna say. We wouldn't have separate boards if we were ever gonna be established. A fire board would have to be one board.
Right.
That's part of the challenge why we ended up with this sort of different stations doing different things and not being standardized because we had different boards. And just the council's information, there was not a board for Gray. It's just the 2 Brussels and Seaforth that had.
Could we ask staff then to bring back, some information on what the structure might look like, that if we had 2 meetings a year where, and I don't know how many people from each department, would be involved, but to keep everything equitable, you should do 1 meeting in the north and 1 meeting in the south, so that each only have to drive once. If they could bring back, some sort of structure of what they think could be doable. Does that work for council to consider? Can I get a mover to request that? Moved by Councilor Chartrand and second by Councilor Stepford. Did you have a question, Larry, or
No.
you're just gonna second it? Okay. Yes, Bob.
I had a comment, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I too have got requests from at least the Seaforth Fire Department to return to the 2 meetings a year and the, if we still had the family health team meetings, I wonder if we would have had this, discussion from last month and now the discussion that will carry on tonight, if that could have been resolved quite simply in one of their, 2 meetings a year. But having things come to a head.
Yeah, I think there's one thing that I think both of those boards, both the health team boards and the fire board, they technically don't have any authority, so they technically shouldn't be making decisions without council approval. They are a committee of council, so therefore they have to make recommendations to council. So I think the only point I'm trying to make is that you can have those committees, those boards, whatever you wanna call them, but at the end of the day, they've gotta come back to council for the decision, right? So I think, yeah, as far as all.
If you don't have a committee meeting, how can they go back to council?
Well, the other option is just straight come to council, right? Because you're gonna come to council anyway and have the discussion at council. Right? I just wanna make sure council understands, it's not a shortcut to make decisions quicker, because you still have to bring the decision to council.
Yeah, I agree. I think what it does is opens up a chain of command for communication. And I think if we have a representative from council that can bring it back maybe a few here before we hear it on the street or hear it from somebody else, we'd have a lot of information up front that we could at least mitigate it before they have to come as a delegation. So I would agree with making that recommendation and moving forward.
You talking about the fire?
Fire and any, like the health board, but Bob just referenced, and the health and the fire as well.
All right, let's, if we can, discuss this. How would it be better communication for council if they have a meeting and then those people interpret it to council and council doesn't actually hear it from the horse's mouth? What is faster or better?
Well, it would save a lot, in my opinion, again, it'd save a lot of the non-response. When people are going to different department heads or see them not getting response, if there was a council that could bring that in, maybe that could speed up something that doesn't come to a delegation. Or it's just open line of communication. I think it's the transparency, it's the, working together with administration and the community. I just think it adds, we're not a decision maker by any means as a unit, but we are a communicator, and we can bring it to council that we can deal with it ahead of time versus why we're here tonight or different things.
I certainly can argue the merit of the fire board meetings, because even though we are one fire department, we have 3 separate battalions, and for them to get together at least twice a year to share the comments and have council representatives there to come back and respond about how those types of meetings went, whether everybody agrees or disagrees on how things are going forward. But when it's only one group, having a go between their request eventually getting to council or going through someone and then having it got to council, doesn't that slow down the process?
I disagree. I think it speeds up process. So I think in the fact of if, using the delegation tonight, if they had if they weren't getting an answer or not getting a return message, that they had somebody to go to council, that could be brought ahead. Honestly, I just think we've got a lot going on with healthcare in this community and around. Being able to stay on top of it as a council is vital, and that's important. So I think communication around the whole thing between fire and health team is important if we want to keep a pulse on what's going on in our community.
Okay, let's deal with one at a time then, since they are 2 separate issues. So, did I take a vote on asking staff to come back with the information? As of yet?
I think you had a mover and a second.
Mover and a seconder. So, can we take a vote on the fire one to begin with? All those in favor?
Could you replay it, please, Mr. Mayor?
Yep. That we bring back a report on the structure of one fire board, keeping it equitable between north and south, but all different departments are reporting into that one fire board that meet twice a year. So staff brings back what that structure could look like.
Deputy Mayor?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And probably the way Jesse has worded, right, all I was looking for was, are we going to add a council rep?
I would include that as part of that structure piece.
Yeah. We'd have to before that on Twitter partners too.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, sure.
Okay. All those in favor? And motion carries. Okay, Counselor Steffler, so what is it you would like to propose as a suggestion for family health team?
My preference would be to have a council member, beyond the, even if it's an ad hoc committee, to do a review with them or to sit on their boarding meetings, whatever we can do to help them and show support towards them. Right now, I think we need to have a representative on their board that can communicate back or liaison between ourselves and staff.
Okay, go ahead.
I guess we could ask, it's not our board, it's their board, so we could ask if they're willing to let us.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay.
Didn't we used to have counselors on that board before?
We had our own, what do I call it, we had the Brussels Medical Dental on the board, your board, and then you had the C4 Health Center board, but they weren't two different boards, let's just not mix them up, so it was just basically meeting with the administrator there and the staff here in terms of looking at our budget and our operations, not their operations. So I think Councilor Steffler's suggesting to have a bit more of an integrated relationship with how they're functioning so that we can be of some better support to them.
I can speak to a little bit in the past in the fact that we did not sit in on their actual meetings unless we were invited. I know of a couple of instances where Councilor Fisher, your father and myself, attended meetings that we were asked to go to, but we were certainly the minority in the room for the people that were there making the decisions. They just wanted us aware and wanted council support of things that they were looking to do.
Yeah, CAO makes a great point. It's their board, it's not our board.
Yeah.
So whatever they want, we just have to show them support. And I think from what I heard last meeting, I'm new to this, so work with me, the workings of this relationship of rent decreases and who pays for what was done 20-some years ago. I think it might be a good time now to sit down with them, and I think what we're gonna talk about tonight going forward is a lot deeper than just a rent. The medical system, the things have changed, so how can we support them? And maybe not nickels and dimes, but a plan for 2024 go forward. So maybe it's a ad hoc committee, maybe it's just something to work with them outside of their normal day-to-day stuff, but how we can be a better or as good, or if not better, supporter for them going forward.
So go ahead, Councilor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a bit of history, Mr. Mayor, from the newer councilors. When the building was built, the family health team formed that board. And we were able to get information from it because myself and Councilor Steffler were on it, and I got off and Councilor Steffler was on for quite a while. And there was also the committee of 6 that, for lack of a better description, looked after the building. There was 2 counselors, 2 from the Seaforth Trust, because they contributed to the building of the cost of building the building, and 2 people from the family health team committee, and they met twice a year in short meetings, but I think they were quite open and a discussion, and so the counselors were able to come back and let us know what was going on. Now, going forward, I don't know if we need that committee of 6 again, but if the family health team board was willing to have a counselor on it in a, maybe not a voting capacity, but an information capacity, I would be comfortable with that as well,
Okay, so.
in lieu of.
Yeah.
Thank
So,
you.
Councilor Steffler, I'm gonna make the assumption then that your request to staff, or your motion at this time would be to ask staff to inquire if in fact the health team board would be interested in a council member attending the meetings for information purposes.
Well worded, thank you.
Seconded, Councilor Fisher?
Yep.
Any other questions, council? All those in favor? And then motion carries.
Just going back, you'd, mentioned the rec board.
Mhm.
Did you say that we weren't getting information back?
There were times that, I get comments about, from council members to myself personally, but not as a report to council, of just things that were going on at the meetings and stuff they were discussing, and I even had, representatives talk about the fact that, there wasn't a lot that they could do, because budget was set. So there wasn't a lot of changes there, and I forget how it was actually worded. But I think even some of the comments came from, is it North Perth or Perth East? I'm sorry, which, West Perth, sorry, West Perth. I think got there eventually. That they weren't sure that the board was serving a lot of purpose. It was almost just a spot to vent if you didn't like something. But it's not that a lot of changes could be made, because once things were kind of scheduled for the year, how much of a purpose it was serving. Now, on the flip side of that, I've also heard comments that they don't like now that they're not there, but they didn't like that they were there before. So I don't know how you make everybody happy. But I'm just taking my personal experience.
Okay, just one clarification on that, because if you're not getting, if the stuff or the information isn't getting back to the table here, then we need to find out where the glitch is.
That's some graphic.
Part of the board structure is set up because there was multiple financial partners in each facility, because we had Central Huron in with Seaforth, Tucker Smith, and Seaforth and West Perth. And it was set up because even though Seaforth did the books, that meeting was always set up so they knew what was going on. Much the same with Brussels, I would believe, because you have two partners in there. I think that's part of your board structure to start with.
You had a comment, Brett?
I think, I just wanted to make sure that when you spoke the fact that maybe some of the information coming back from the old boards and not necessarily our new committee.
Correct.
Just a clarification.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't remember where we were. Okay, so, Deputy Mayor, you were the one that asked for the information. Are you satisfied with where council is after the discussion?
All I wanted was councillors to have a chance to comment on it. And if we have to make some changes, then make some changes before the end of our term, so that we have the next 2-year term is coming up, so we need time to make them changes. But council's happy with that, I am.
Okay. Then we'll go on to, report 24-20 for the CAO again.
I'm sorry.
That was the CAO one.
Oh, sorry.
You can keep staying there.
No.
Similar composition, I get, everything's kind of in the report, so again, this is up for council decision and discussion. We've been looking at it for a couple of years now, and various, public engagement tools we've been using. So I put the different feedbacks we've gotten, some past reports we've received, this history, most recent, survey that went out, and just kind of some option scenarios. Again, those are just some scenarios based off the feedback we've received. It's all kind of in council's hands on what they decide to do in there.
Any comments at this time? There's a, go ahead, Councilor Deal.
I was just going to mention that, just talking with the general public, they feel that for the cost savings, they'd rather have the representatives around the table and leave things status quo. That's the feedback that I've got.
So,
Deputy Mayor.
I'm just gonna say, I'll get up on my soapbox again, but I'll never see the boards, I'll never vote to this, the words will say. I think that's important. I think that's where we get our strength from, what we do. I truly believe that. And right now, I think with the workload that we do have, I think it takes two, so it does per ward. It's fair, it's equal, so it is. There's no complaining that, Seaport has all the votes, or Brussels has all the votes, or Gray has all the votes. We all have equal that way. So that's my point.
Yeah, just to respond to that comment before I go to the rest of the council, even when I went through it again, just as a reminder of what we discussed in the past. Although I'm aware of other municipalities that did change their ward system a long time ago, they seem quite happy with it. Even when I read this, I thought that was maybe the one thing that might push it too far is by not having the ward system. So to me, I'd be more than happy to stick with the ward system, so you've got your individual identities. But then the question is, what should the number be sitting on the council? There's no doubt we are the largest council, in the county. And would, 5 and 2 as a 7-member council be adequate, which would still be equal representation across the board, so. Councilor Stelter.
Yeah, this is my first time going through this, and I appreciate everybody that's been around before going through this every term. For me, the wards are very important. I truly believe that. I think 2 members of council is really important for the fact that as a new councillor, I get the privilege of learning under Bob. Like for my ward, there's a lot of different things. Going through past histories of the family health thing, I think is important. I would rather see, if we're looking to reduce costs and money, maybe some of the, going to AMO or going to Roma being capped at 2 or 3 people and having to do a report when you come back, as opposed to bringing, 12 and 10 people down to a conference. The conferences are great. You make a lot of connections, you make the right things. But if it's about cost, I think we could look at a different way to bring that back and, and doing it that way. But wards are very important. We have a big territory from almost Listowel to, the other end. That's huge. We don't get paid a lot, like, $12,000. By the time we come to a council, every one of us here probably makes more at our jobs. Like, we're not doing this for a job. We're doing it for a passion for the community. And if you bring too much to people, you're not going to get a representation that I think, just by cutting it in half. And you're going to prevent people from running if you bring it to a ward system with only one person, because you're going to get a very popular person at 30 years old, and that would potentially mean 30 years of the same ideas going across the table. So just my opinion. I open to anything I'm learning as we go, but I totally believe in what we have right now is working, and appreciate everybody working around the table together.
Councilor Chartrand.
Yeah, I don't see wards going. I mean, even when you go to London or Windsor, Toronto, South Huron, Blue Water, they may have restructured some of their wards, but they still have wards. They're not at large across their whole municipality or their whole town. So we may be a big council, but we are the biggest municipality land-wise in the county. So what we have is working.
Councilor McGrath.
Just echoing what John said, and I think it comes down to, we could reduce by meetings, we could reduce by convention. There's lots of things we could take to save money. Wards definitely stay, I agree, and for the simple reason is, not that anybody wants to run to this job, and I don't know why, but they just don't. But let's say, for example, I'm hoping to leave. I said I was leaving, but let's see what happens in the end. But you have 2 representatives from Tuckersmith, okay? Somebody green comes on from Tuckersmith. Now there's a learning curve, like John says. It's nice to have somebody there in that regard. But yeah, I know, Bernie, I'd like to get out too, but I guess my problem is, when you come in the last day and nobody signed up for the punishment, there you go, you go back. So I think the ward stay, and I agree with John on a lot of things that, you could come down to just reduction in going to these conventions, even meetings, like what's a meeting cost, if it's every 3 weeks. Not everything we do every meeting is pressing. This is my point, so. And I'm not sure you're leaving at the end of this either.
Oh, yes, I am. I've made that loud and clear.
I did too.
I guess just to respond to that, and I already stated it, that I think the wards are important because that's the identity that the current people in Huron East, recognize. And I have absolutely no problem with maintaining that. I do have, a concern about the fact that you didn't have somebody else from your particular ward. It is nice when someone around the table has history of stuff that's gone on in the past. But it doesn't have to be a person from your ward. Whether you need that history, it can come from staff, it can come from other council members that have been around. I'm sorry, but at any time, you could replace both those members out of any one ward and it would be the exact same thing. So I don't buy that part of it. Something could happen, unfortunately, and you could lose a couple council members and having to replace them. You don't have that background, but that doesn't mean you've lost all the history or the information that would be needed to make good decisions going forward. So I don't bite on that one as quickly, but I do still agree that the ward systems right now are the identity of the Huron East people, and they would like to keep it that way. Brendan?
That's exactly what I was gonna say. I know when we tell up, it would be a huge thing if they were to take that away. They would have no desire to lose their wards. And I think in light of what's happened in the last week or 10 days, maybe it is a good thing to have someone that's very familiar with the area, and if something crops up, we have a little more knowledge. And I'm not saying anything against the councilors from Dr. Smith or Seaforth, but they might not have that exact knowledge of what has happened, and I think we need to have representatives from our local areas and certainly keep the wards.
Okay, I just want to clarify one other thing, and I'm not questioning about the fact that individuals that have approached you have stated that they like the system the way it is. But we've had over the years, a lot of, you should look at it this way, and then we look at it that way. And well, it's too late now to do something, and then next time around, no, you should look at it this way, and then it ends up being too late. So we said, all right, we've got a 4-year term, we're gonna try and figure it out. And there were a number of surveys and opportunities to talk to the public. And if I understand correctly, the majority of those responses that came back had recommendations of some changes to the system. I'm not saying that they agreed with everything that was in there, but they did want to see some changes to the system. So I take it, the council sitting around the table doesn't agree with those recommendations that we should be making some sort of change. They just want to keep everything status quo. Is that really the motion that we're gonna be putting forward?
That's what I hear on
That's what I
But the question is, what percentage of the people are we talking to compared to the people that we gave opportunities to respond? Whether it be in written form or on the website or wherever else we approach them. That the majority of those people that took the time to respond did state that they would like to see some sort of change.
I think it was,
Actually, I think it was Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of thoughts, if I may. I've been doing this 18 years now, and I've noticed in the last term and this term that not dissension, but there seems to be a little bit more of, there are ward councillors and then a Huron East councillor instead of being a Huron East councillor and then their ward. And I firmly believe that we are all Huron East councillors first and then think about our wards. And I'm seeing us diverge away from that. The thing I've noticed all the years I've been here, there is always 2 or 3 councillors, when I come to a meeting, like previously, I could hear them opening their package and reading it for the first time. Now I sense that they're on their devices and reading their package for the first time. I don't know why. We've all had 5 days to review things, and if you took the job, then you should do the job. But when and I've mentioned this to other counselors as well, and they confirm what I am hearing. There's 11 of us here. If 2 or 3 aren't performing or committed, then cut her down. As far as keeping the wards, have been against that since day one, but I've been beaten and bruised the last while. I'm not sure now if I want to see the wards dissolved, but I definitely think we could be, smaller somehow. Thank you.
Councillor Sharkey?
I was gonna say that, I lost my train of thought now. Listening to Bob.
I'll be happy to come back to you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, hey, I wouldn't mind having the discussion with the committee that might with our recommendations. I wouldn't mind having that. Because I think it's worthwhile. They spent the time doing it. I'd like to hear the rationale behind it. I am all in on the wards, as I've said before. I would look at, if we need to cut down, I would look at cutting it back to one person per ward. And I know Councillor Willoughby is gonna call me out because I've said that different times. I wasn't going to say that, but I would. But having said that, so you have one person per ward. My week of, ending on September the 20th. So if you had somebody that had to call live meetings that week, and I'm sure you can relate, Tuesday night was council here, Wednesday morning was county council, Wednesday night was Maitland Valley, Thursday morning was Blue Water Recycling, Thursday morning, a little bit later on, was Indigenous training, Friday morning was Water Source Protection. That was my week of meetings. So you get somebody that is new, and I mean, we'd love to get somebody new, but what happened if they had a workload like that? And with getting paid what we do, they're gonna want more money. So if we cut back on the number of counselors, but with that sort of workload, and I go back and forth with my fellow counselor Dio, we chat quite often about different things. But if you don't have somebody like that to bounce stuff off of, then yes, I know you have the rest of council to do that. But sometimes it is local things that you want to talk about too. So that's what worries me. And 6 months into a new term with a new counselor, and they're gonna say, boy, I don't know if I can keep this workload up. And I know I don't have that every time, but the third week in every month, mine is always fairly heavy. So it is. So that's just some comments for me.
And I certainly appreciate the comment, that you just made, and you're right. There may be 1 week out of the month that's heavy like that, and even that week was heavier than normal because there were some added things that came from the county, that aren't normally there, and they're there maybe, I think, 3 times a year, those extra training sessions and things like that. But yes, you can have 1 week that is intensive, there's no doubt about it. But then I guess the other side of it is that, there's always the opportunity for a newer member to ask not to be on as many committees off the bat also. We even do that at county council. There's an actual form that you fill out. Here's all of the committees that will be, set up by the new warden coming in. If you have an interest, put down your 1, 2, and 3. And if you don't want to be on it, we've had county councilors start and say, I'm not sure what my workload's gonna be. I don't wanna be on any committees this time around. By the time it got to the second term, they realized it wasn't near as bad as they thought it was going to be, and we're happy to join some of those committees. It does happen from time to time, but yes, there are some weeks that, yeah, I don't ever get home for supper. That's just the way it is. Councilor Chartrand.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, this is to Jess, a lot of these surveys that we did, I know we did them at the all candidates night, we did them online. And I believe over 50% or 50% of them said current council the way it was.
This last survey was 50% in support of what the ad hoc committee had
Yeah.
recommended, which
Prior
was
to
changing
that.
things.
And to arbitrarily, as Councillor Alden was saying, to arbitrarily say, just go one councillor per ward. I can talk about my ward with Larry, and our ward is the gigantic one out of all 5 of them, both in population, both in size, from Rogerville Road to Highway 8, from 183 to Highway 4, with 3 urban centers, Benastra, Egmontville, and Harper Hay. You have, if you are gonna take a look at it, you need to take a look at the size of the wards as well, because I don't know that one person could handle all the meetings and the phone calls from just our ward alone. It's gigantic.
And my comments are not meant to sway anyone at the table. I just want to make sure that we've got all the information on the table. I think the deputy mayor makes a really good point. We've read reports that were brought back from another committee. And actually, if there is an opportunity to meet with some of those people, and I hope if we take the time to invite them to come and talk with us, that the opinion doesn't matter what they say, my mind's made up. I hope that if we take the time to invite them, they take the time to meet with the public, that we will take their opinion as having some merit, because hopefully their opinion's not their opinion, it's the opinion that they've gathered from the members of hearings. So is there an opportunity to have whoever did that work?
We could potentially invite them as a delegation or a presentation, but my only holdback or advice would be that this committee was meeting in 2021 and 2022. I don't know their status, if they still live here. Like, I honestly don't know their interest in wanting to come back as a committee again. It was an ad hoc to serve that purpose of creating the final report. So technically, they're not a committee anymore. So they were, once they submitted that final report, that was the end of their mandate. It doesn't hurt to ask them, but I just wouldn't know if you would be able to get the full membership that would be willing or wanting to come back.
I still like the idea of the people that gathered the information, if they're willing to come back and just have a conversation with council, it couldn't hurt to talk to them face to face. So at this point, could we just at least inquire about whether they'd be willing to come to a future council meeting? You probably should notify council at the next council meeting if they're willing to come to the one now.
Yes.
Yeah.
We would, it wouldn't be a subsequent council meeting. I think we'd have to plan one a few in advance. And my only other comment would be that this was a member of citizens, so this wasn't an expert that could, you know, forecast population. And you'll see in my report, there's a lot of mention of a third party because they take into these considerations of not just population, but your demographics and your communities and things like that. So your knowledge that you're getting and your surveys are getting are coming from your citizens and what we have as staff as resources. So if you're looking for something bigger with these concrete answers on projections, that's where that information comes in. If you may want to take that a step further. Because these were the citizens as well that engaged with the public. So they weren't experts in the matter of
Right.
council and boundaries.
Councilor Sharp?
I think we ruled out, we don't need consultation, consultants for wards, because I think one of the common things around this whole table is keep the 5 wards. So I don't see us spending any money to do a ward reevaluation.
No, and I was just saying if that's still a topic of consideration, if the committee were to come back, just to keep in mind that they weren't experts in the field.
Councilor Dalton, did you have your hand up there? No. Well, you're at an auction. If you move, you're called. Councilor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't agree with reducing the number of council meetings. I think we, sometimes we're 4 hours, sometimes we're an hour and a half. I think it all works out. And if we were to go to 18, it might, you just lose contact with what's going on, I think. So I would prefer to keep the 22 council meetings. Thank you.
The only other comment I want to add to that one is sometimes when you break it up into 2 meetings a month, there's a lot of times that things can fall into a particular meeting that just work out well, whether it be your payables or your planning, things like that. But that certainly can add up to quite a lengthy meeting if you try and squeeze it all in at once. That certainly can be a problem. Okay, so at this point, I guess we would like to direct staff to try and contact the members of the committee that gathered the information from the public on behalf of council and see if they are interested in meeting with council just to give us the actual feel of what they had when they had those talks. Do I have a mover? Councilor Newell and second by Councilor Deal. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you.
Okay.
Real short agenda, right, correct, okay. Council remuneration options.
So this is, it falls in line, again, this was another request of council that we look at different pay scenarios, honorarium scenarios, reducing meetings. So this report kind of pulled in that discussion of scenarios that were offered and just some comparisons with our local municipalities. To give a flavor, again, it's direction of council, which way you would like to go with that.
Any comments? Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I said whenever it was in June or July, I think we should leave our annual pay the way it is. The council meetings, leave them the same, and only increase the committee meetings every other year with the COLA. Thank you.
Any other comments of council? Deputy Mayor.
Through you to Jessica, and I think Jessica, you told me that we can't just freeze the COLA for county, for the councilors themselves.
That's correct. This also comes out of your citizen appointments would also be considered as part of that. They get the same policy, they reflect on the same policy as council does.
Do we have, and it's unfair to ask you, a rough idea how many people that would affect?
You have a few that sit on your economic development. There's maybe 10 to 12 citizens that sit on, because you have your heritage, economic development, recreation advisory. I think those are the three that have citizen appointments on them. 10 to 12, yeah. Public members, yes. And their meetings are infrequently, so I wouldn't be able to tell you off the top of my head how many meetings per year they'd all attend, because it's all basis off of when those committees meet.
We have made some minor little adjustments. Such as tonight is a prime example. We had a personnel meeting prior to the council meeting. So we're still only getting paid for one meeting. And we've tried to, or staff have tried to combine those whenever possible, to reduce the cost. You know, there was a number of options in here about increase this, decrease this. At the end of the day, if it's all working out the same, I don't know why we would put staff through all that paperwork. To me, it doesn't seem, it's a shell game and you're all ending up the exact same. So I don't see the purpose in something like that. That's maybe fine for the federal government, hoping to fool a few citizens, but that's not what we're trying to do. The reason I like the structure we have now is because the bottom line is if you show up for a meeting, then you're getting compensated for the meeting. And if you don't show up, you're not getting paid anything for it. To me, that's a better system than increasing your honorarium, and then it just doesn't matter how many meetings you go to. I like this, you get paid when you work.
I agree.
Yeah. So I like leaving it this way. You know, and when we talk about, you know, COLA this year is, you know, gonna be recommended at, 2% or 2.1%, I think it is. That is literally just the inflation rate, at the current rate. We're not talking an outrageous number. And we've had the same thing in the past. It's been a while ago, but you know, we used to go 4 years and then all of a sudden there'd be a huge raise, and that just didn't look appropriate. But it was because you were trying to catch up because you didn't do 2, 2, and 2 kind of deal. Now that's my personal opinion, but I like the structure that we have here, and I think the more we can carry on and combine as many meetings as possible is a good thing. The whole idea, if you want to start to minimize, there was a good suggestion earlier, if you minimize the number of counselors that you allow to go to any learning session, and those people are expected to bring back a report because they're being paid to be at that learning session, I think that's a great idea. I said that years ago that anytime I was paid, I brought back some sort of report of something that I got from the overall session so that council could hear what I got out of it. I think that's a great idea doing that. Again, John, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, and my freezing the COLA for the rest of our term was only the gesture that we could show to the public that we recognize costs are high. That's all I was after. I know it's not a big savings, but it's something.
Any recommendation at this point? Councillor Morrison,
Status quo.
second by Councillor Chartrand. Any final comments or questions? All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. And the next one is the council approved policy HR 006 overtime policy as presented in report HR 24-02. Comments or questions on the information in that report? Do I have a mover and a seconder for the overtime policy? Moved by Councillor Morrison, second by Councillor Deal. All those in favor? And motion carries. Brussels outdoor pickleball courts. Who wants to start? Lisa? Go ahead.
So, just to review the, request from the pickleball, group. They've updated you tonight with some costs, that they've gotten a new price. So just going in with that, that they are asking for 50% of the cost. And I'm just wanting to share with the council, everything that, to date that we are planning in our 2025 budget. That the additional, cost, that they're requesting, to add to our budget is putting a lot of strain on our 2025 budget. With my recommendation is all I'm asking is that since the pickleball court has actually raised 50% or close to it of what their cost would be, is that the municipality will try to gain their portion through a grant. So, and that would cover phase one, which phase one is a priority for health and safety. So now I just quickly was able to review the grant that Mr. Stratton was speaking of. And maybe there's a possibility that that grant could actually be applied for both their phase one and phase two. But again, seeking out the municipality's portion through a grant, making it grant pending. So that's what my recommendation is.
Councillor Noel.
Just, one of the things I believe is, process that we have or procedures that we ask groups to raise 50% towards, a recreation amenity, and this group has done that. The dollar figure of $7,000 to $8,000, when you're looking at, a safety concern, I'd be hesitant to say we need to wait to hear if we get a grant to worry about safety. And the dollar figure is not a big one, so, I would make a motion that we look after the 50% by putting it into next year's budget for approval.
Councillor Morrison.
I'd second that.
Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What, I proposed this earlier and, Mr. McRoberts said the Parkland Reserve was not depleted, but questionable, for using that. Should that be looked at as the avenue for paying for this?
But I guess the point I'm trying to make is it really doesn't matter. I mean, parkland funds are to be depleted, but they're already being depleted for other projects anyway, so it's kind of, you know, which pocket are you pulling the money from? It's here nor there, I guess. The truth is, you know, there's probably ability for us to be able to, you know, absorb an 8,000. I think it was just, Director of Community Services was just trying to, when we are already fairly financially strained on our capital requirements, was to leverage those dollars through grant applications preferably rather than just directly funding. I don't think she was trying to be, you know, not to fund it, but let's try to leverage those dollars. So my recommendation, if they're, you know, what I would think you'd try to do is agree to what Councillor Newell has proposed, but maybe part behind that too is also do the grant application because, you know, do both. You know,
But if you wait till, early summer to hear back on a grant and it's refused, then you apply for another grant and that's refused, then you're a year later and people are breaking their ankle.
I think it's kind of, sorry, what I'm suggesting is apply for the grant, and if we get the grant, great, then we don't have to use our own money. But if we don't get the grant, then we use our own money.
You have timelines on the grant, Lisa?
So the one is in March, yes. And there's also another one, Canada Post has another grant opening up. Usually it opens up in February with an announcement in March as well.
Could you apply for the first one in March or you hear about it?
The Canada Post one, you could apply for it in February and you do hear about it in March. And the Ontario Seniors Community Grant, you apply for it in March and I believe you hear by it by the end of April.
Thank you.
Councillor Sharkey.
The other, pocket of money, I don't know what we've used up in 2025 of our vibrancy fund. That would be a good, spot to use it as well, because the whole thing about vibrancy fund is for the community.
And again, like I said, it doesn't matter what pocket you guys are pulling it from, it's, you know, it's all the same, it's all being pulled together to serve the same purpose, so. Again, you have enough money, I believe, I'd have to go back and look at it, but I'm pretty sure you have enough money for 8,000. But I still encourage you to suggest that we apply for the grants.
Yeah.
We just might as well leverage those dollars when we can.
Jess, can you flip back to, what the actual motion was? Give it to me.
That, we look after the 50% within our 25 budget for recruitment. So that $8,000 we added to our budget.
Okay, I'm just gonna ask the mover and seconder to consider rewording it just because I consider this more appropriate. Don't disagree with the request that we forward to the 2025 budget, the request for, whether you say the 8,000 or whatever the 50% share is from council. Because at the end of the day, no matter what we do tonight, it still has to get approved by budget anyways. But I think we all understand when it's a health and safety issue, we want to help accommodate. And as I stated earlier, when the public have already raised their 50% right off the bat, that certainly shows a good faith sign that this is a service that is used by the community. So if you're fine with that. Okay. Any other questions on this time? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for you. Lisa, the ask from the committee also that we be 50-50 partners besides that, but act as their banker. Is that part of your motion too? Or is that something different, is that another motion on top?
That was their request, but I think that would be the most sensible thing to do for that organization. Yeah.
Get the HST back.
So amendment then that council agrees.
I don't think you need to have an amendment. I think at the end of the day is we would procure the services anyway. We would work it through our own system anyway. It's just, they would have to just provide us their donation fund to offset the other 50%. So I think the request is what we would probably want to do anyway.
Okay.
Because it's gonna flow through us.
Any other questions on the motion? All those in favor? And motion carries. Family health team request to reduce rent. I can read the motion. That the council of the municipality of Huron East establish an ad hoc committee of council consisting of the mayor, the deputy mayor, and 3 additional members of council as determined and appointed by the mayor to initiate investigatory discussions with the Huron County or Community Family Health Team regarding consideration of the Family Health Team's request for financial assistance. And that the ad hoc committee of council report back to council with recommendations. And further that the ad hoc committee remain in place as deemed necessary to monitor the financial stability of the Huron Community Family Health Team unless directed otherwise by council. don't have a mover and a seconder as of yet, but what we would do is put names in here if we were to pick names at this point. Myself, I would consider myself a Seaboard rep. I'm technically on the border, but I certainly call my home Seaboard. The deputy mayor, I would consider to be a gray rep, and it would make sense that we had a rep from each of the wards. So I still need a rep from McKellar, Brussels, and Tucker Smith.
Mr. Mayor, can we just put those as two separate motions, so that road motion that was in the report, that you want to accept that ad hoc committee, and then we'll have a second motion where we actually appoint the members.
Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely. Does everybody agree with the concept of having this committee, one representative from each of our wards, and we get to the bottom of the financial information, have an understanding, if we need to, we can also meet with the family health team, face to face, and have their discussion with them. Is that acceptable at this point, Councilor McGrath?
I don't agree with the ad hoc committee, because it's gotta come back to council, but at the end of the day, this is all stemmed from the provincial government cutting funding for their rent, right? We're being compared to other facilities for rent purposes, so we can have an ad hoc committee or whatever we want to come back with a recommendation, but at the end of the day, we have to make the decision. We may as well hear the information here firsthand. The big question is, at the end of the day, you give a rent reduction, what is it gonna cost the Huron East taxpayer to carry that? Then it's a double-edged sword, because if they move out because you don't reduce the rent, then you've got nothing. So I guess I view it in the way that I see where they're coming from. We got, like, your provincial government is the worst tenant in the world. Always has been and always will be. Haven't had an increase in I don't know how many years they have this, I forget, but long time since for their funding. It's like it was stagnant for 4 or 5 years. Our costs have gone up. Like everything's gone up there. So we pay all the maintenance and everything and services. So I don't know, that's my opinion. Ad hoc committee isn't gonna gain anything. We gotta find out. Does this council agree that at the end of the day, you're gonna reduce it by how much? Or to be in line with everybody else? And are you willing to pile that onto the taxpayer of Huron East? Because as you and I have discussed before in the past, your worship, this is just another way for the provincial government to download more and more and more onto the taxpayer of the municipalities. Plain and simple. That's my opinion.
I certainly agree with the whole downloading thing. The reason I think there is a bit of merit to having an ad hoc committee is having a smaller group of us meet with them. I think that does facilitate easier discussion rather than having a couple people come to just a council meeting. Because a council meeting is not designed as a discussion between a group and the council. Council meeting is designed as a discussion for council. It's not an open session of discussion. By having a separate committee meeting, and that's why we have committee meetings, you have more open and easier discussion back and forth. That's why I think there is merit to it. And there's more to it than us being compared to other groups, because we offer things that other groups don't, and they may offer some things that we don't. The packages are not all the same in the comparisons of what the rents were for all the different facilities. So those are things that we've got to figure out. We need to see information from them, and we need to be able to present to them the things that we're putting together in our package. Maybe there are other opportunities, and can't go into it, but I know that there are other opportunities of how this could be addressed. Whether those are good opportunities or not, they need to be investigated. And I think let's get the work done. Nothing's gonna happen financially before January of 2025 anyway, so we've got time to get to the bottom of this and bring good information back to council to make a decision. I'll go to Councillor Stepford first.
Yeah, I think the ad hoc committee is good. It will unearth a lot of things, how we can all become better partners, and maybe there's a lot more to it than just rent. My question would be, Mayor, with all due respect to you, the deputy mayor, I think Councillor Fisher would be a great representative for Seaforth, and the fact that he was around the original, had some really good questions regarding the, the structure of the things on the Seaforth Trust with, the part of the debenture and all that. I just don't see where, I think Councillor Fisher would probably be a huge asset on that committee.
And just as a reminder, I was here long before Councillor Fisher, so I was here for the whole start of it also.
That's fair too.
Bob, you had a comment.
Yeah, I agree with the committee, as long as it is very, very diligent in looking at the, reserves. Do we need the large reserve we have and continual putting significant sums in it each year? The structure of the repayment of the loans, how that impacts us. And again, the way the province is downloading on us, but at the same time we're figuring this out, we should be actively lobbying Ms. Thompson and the province to get their act together. And thank you for the kind words, Councillor Stuffler.
Yeah,
I was interested in being on this, but I totally understand where you're coming from, Mr. Mayor, with the five.
yeah, and Councillor McGrath is right about the whole downloading thing. I'm also trying to get the county council, on board to contact every other municipality in the province for the same thing for the, boards of health. Because, the 1% increase that the province has stated that they're giving over a number of years, that doesn't even cover the cost of living. They're expecting us to pay more and more of all these healthcare costs from our property tax dollars. We said no last year. We cut 13.5 staff members and cut some programs. We're not willing to cover the whole cost again this time around, so I'm trying to do a little bit of intervention and get the rest of the province involved in it, but, and we all understand that, whenever the hospital needs something, we always do step up. We're there when we can, to help out. We've certainly helped with doctor recruitment and stuff like that in the past, a number of times. So it's not that we do not want to assist in healthcare, but we don't want to be the person paying the bill for all the healthcare in Ontario, not even in our region alone. Councilor McGrath?
Well, I don't think you need representatives from every ward. I would say maybe you, Delvin, and as John has said, maybe Bob, because of the history of with it, because these are just like information gathering committee, right? You want to get the information as to what's gone down, what's in the past, what we have, what we don't have. You're gonna come back to this committee to this council with a report. And that's the bottom line. And then you don't have a whole lot of people sitting at the table and we trust you, not all the time, but we trust you. That's all I'm saying. It's just, you get too many cooks in the kitchen, the meal will always come out right. So you're there to gather information as to their side of it, our side of it, all the information we need, and you come back to us with a report
Okay.
and a recommendation.
So without the names on it, the first thing was to have a, ad hoc committee. It did talk about 3 other members of council, so we can make an amendment to that. It doesn't have. We'll reword it to say the mayor, deputy mayor, and other members of council as appointed. That way, when we get to the next motion, we'll clarify that. Does that work for everybody? I've got a mover and a seconder, or do I not? I do not. Can I move by Councillor Wilby, second by Councillor Dalton? All those in favor? And motion carries. Okay, so the next motion would be, that the council of the municipality of Huron East appoint the following members to the family health team ad hoc committee. It lists myself, the deputy mayor, and there were 3 spots for councillors. It's been suggested, Councillor Fisher, do you desire to take that position, Councillor Fisher?
Yes, I would like to, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay with the other members, and especially with your thoughts about having one from each ward.
Any other comments of council at this time? Okay, I need to move in a second. Moved by Councilor Stefler, second by the deputy mayor. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. I have nothing under correspondence. I'm
Mr.
sending.
Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, could I just ask a couple of questions about the report? Sure. The revenues that are shown here, are that, for the center here in Seaforth, is that the total revenues for all the tenants, or is that just the family?
I can answer that. It's for the total tenants.
Pardon me?
It's all the tenants.
All the
Right,
tenants?
This is the total financial statement for both facilities.
Pardon me?
It's the total statement for both facilities,
Okay.
like for each one, but yeah, it represents all the revenues and all the expenses.
Is it possible to break out like the health team here?
I
in
can break out the
Seaforth?
revenue, but how do I allocate the expenses to them?
Right,
I mean, because the expenses cover all the tenants.
okay. Second question is, how do we, compare to the surrounding areas in our rent per square foot or however it's allocated?
I had a brief discussion, with someone on this, I can't remember which person it was. But the problem is that some places just charge literally, you rent my building so much square foot. Then there's no other services to go with it. We include a bunch of things. So part of the whole idea of this ad hoc thing is, there's probably gonna be a lot of spreadsheets. We need to break things down. We need to drill it down to what's included, what's not included, why do we do it, why do other people not do it? I still remember some of the discussions from day one when we were putting this whole package together, was we were asked to include a lot of things into it that wouldn't normally be included just in your rent, because the statement I heard over and over again was that they don't train doctors to be accountants, they train them to be doctors, and they don't wanna have to run a business, they wanna be doctors. And so they wanted a lot of things included in there, which made sense. It did. That was the way the structure was originally designed, to make it easier for them. Here's your lump sum payment that you get every month, and we'll take care of a whole bunch of services for you. So we need to kind of whittle down to what actually is rent and what are the other services. And we're probably gonna find, certainly it's not the rent end of it, it's the other services that our costs keep going crazy that we absorb. Councilor Sharp, oh, so go ahead.
Sorry, I just had one
Carry
more
on,
comment
yeah.
to make. I'm just concerned about how this will affect the health team and the doctors and having a hospital in Huron East. I don't want $6,000 to, be the end of having a hospital in Huron East.
I know 6,000 was thrown out of the report, but that's not the number I see in the report.
Well,
Like
the
I said,
original ask was to have the rent.
brought back to a previous
Yes.
level, but when you actually do those calculations, it's now $20,000 down.
But is it worth having our hospital?
I hope that that's not a threat that comes across. At the end of the day, if it's 20,000 this year and next year it's, no, you gotta pay 50 or we're walking. At what point do you say, this is not supposed to be property tax responsibility? And it's not. Healthcare was never supposed to be property tax responsibility. But we already do take some of our property taxes and put it towards healthcare to begin with. Where do we stop? Because I do believe across the entire province, the figure is now at something like $2 billion a year in property taxes goes towards healthcare. That's an outrageous number. And if we start letting it slide more and more, it's gonna just continue on. Why would the province step up if we start to step up?
I understand that too. It's just,
It's not, believe me, I know exactly where you're coming from, Diane. I do not want to take any of the doctors off. I don't want them to leave. But I'm hoping, once we get to the bottom of it and we can see, here's what rent is, here's what all these other things are. What are apples to apples when we compare it? And do you also understand our dilemma? Because if you're not getting it from the province, we have to go and ask our taxpayers to pony up more to give you free rent. Councilor Sharkey.
I would assume then this committee, you're gonna take this lease and pick it apart as to all the things that we do, like we pay for hydro, gas, lawn care, maintenance, snow removal, and put a value on that and separate that to find out what that cost is versus the actual rent.
Okay, so I'm not the bookkeeper to begin with. I would say whatever would normally be included when you rent something, whether utilities are in or out, that would probably be a lump sum package, but other things that we might do, and I can't remember what was all on the list when I went through it today, but it listed a whole bunch of things that we do take care of. We certainly would start to break some of those things out because they're probably not common things that every place that rents square footage to a health team charges or maybe does not provide
You
all
can
of the
actually put a
services.
value to that, calculate the value of it.
That's right. Yeah. Councilor Fisher, do you have your hand up?
And just a reminder to all of us, Mr. Mayor, that healthcare is integral to the health, no pun intended, of our community. If we don't have that family health team and 8 or 9 doctors looking after the 10,000 people in Huron East and other communities, all the money we spend on economic development is wasted. It's integral. Healthcare, housing, and education are the big three in my mind, and for 20,000 or 6,000 or whatever it is, I think we really have to be prudent when we're dealing with this. Thank you.
Councilor Stefan?
Couldn't have said it better, Counselor Fisher. We have a damn good family health team. We got a lot of really good doctors. We've got a hospital. We're talking about, expansion to our long-term care. If we're gonna sit here and debate dollars and cents and whose responsibility is it, province or us, we could end up with nothing. I think really there is one taxpayer. We make a huge commitment to our family health team. We make a huge commitment to our community. Thank you.
Yeah, I just have to say, repeat what everybody else is saying. It's such an important part of our community and it's worth this discussion to have. Absolutely.
Okay, any other comments to council this time? Okay. That was just brought up by Councilor Deal, so there was no motion or anything for that. We are down to council reports. County Council.
Too much at our last meeting. I think there was a report there from SWIFT 2.0. It said in Huron County, there's about 34 sites that are difficult to reach fiber optics, but they have a commitment to do so to make that happen. Megan York, the CEO, gave us a report on the attrition management plan that they have at the county, and that's where they actually go through each year. And if they don't have to hire somebody or combine somebody's job with somebody else's, they do that. So in 2023, that savings was about $398,000 that was saved. So yeah, that was all the county council. I'll just continue on with a couple other ones ahead. We had our Blue Water Recycling meeting, and our president, Francis Bunyu, is actually retiring. He has been on there since the beginning. So he's actually stepping back. November the 4th is his final day as president. The comptroller for Blue Water Recycling, Michelle Courtney, is going to be our new president. She decided she wanted to step up. She's been with the organization since 2016. So we're looking forward to that. There shouldn't be really too much change in what's happening there now. As far as business goes, we have 4 new trucks that have arrived. They're all natural gas trucks. We only have 3 diesel trucks left in our fleet. So, there was a 100% funding for electric study to see how that would work in our organization. As we did that, you can get 50% on the infrastructure to actually build the facility to do that. The problem is with the trucks that are available right now, the payback is usually about 12 years before we get payback on an electric truck. Electric truck you could buy right now for $1 million. There's also one out there right now that you can buy for $2 million. That will do more of our runs that, so actually we're just going to delve with it right now. But at least we got the study done. We're ready to go if there's more money comes along, we can do that. So I think that's everything I got.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any other board committee meetings or seminars that anyone's attended that they need to report on right now? Councilor Sharp?
Not so much board, but the soluble conservation and the Maitland Valley source water protection. There was an opening on that committee, and I was part of the process of interviewing for that opening. We had 4 candidates that we interviewed, and one of our local farmers, you'll know the name Carol Leeming, got appointed to that position, and she's already had her first meeting already for source water protection.
Thank you for that.
And thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And actually, the meeting last night in Clinton, it's called the Community Working Group, to improve public access to the Clinton EI and their hospital. Both, Councillor Stefan and myself attended that meeting last night. Wasn't really anything new, but it wasn't. I mean, it still boils down to just having enough people there to actually do it. So to open the ER on a 24-hour basis. I think right now, John, is it from 7 till 6 or 6 to?
Yeah, they were talking about trying to increase it from, I think, 12 to 16 hours.
Yeah.
So however it all plays out, they had a full complement of staff, but they're still waiting on some maternity leaves.
Yeah.
Sounded positive.
Yeah, but as Andrew said though, too, to extend them hours, they have to deal with the union to do that.
That's right.
And that's gonna be tough to do that, but ultimately it just boiled down to just not enough people, that's all. You know, he said that they could get, what was it, 4 full-time nurses and 3 part-time, they open the ER tomorrow, so they would.
Yeah, no, it was good information and talked about how, you know, the speaker and the spearhead of the community and, you know, not too long ago, we were just talking about a minute ago, our hospital was faced with the exact same situation, so. Yeah, it seems to be, until we change something in a broader scale, we're gonna be faced with shortages and stuff, so. It was a good meeting.
Are there any requests from members at this time? Deputy Mayor?
Can I just ask a question, probably through you to the administration, as you know, would there be an opportunity where we could have a discussion over the ongoing issue in McKillop with the nurse bill? If we have questions or things like that.
I'm not sure I understand. Like, if you got a question, you could reach out to, drainage superintendent's well versed in it, so that's who you would reach out to. I know some councillors have already reached out to him and spoken to him.
Okay. Like the bigger question,
Right?
yeah, the bigger question is the involvement of MOE or lack of.
That's normal.
But is that right, I guess, is what,
Yeah.
you know, what can council do?
Not much. That's typically the response of the ministry, is they typically will say, okay, here's what you do. Go ahead, do it, municipality. They don't do anything. They just make sure you're doing it the right way and dictate how you do it. That's about as blunt as I can put it.
Really?
Yeah, they don't come out and do any work. And it would be the same no matter whether you were a private citizen, public citizen,
Yeah.
entity. They would just come out and say, dictate, you're doing it. This is what you gotta do. Get it done. Hire the contractors, you need to get it done. They don't do anything physically in terms of cleanup. They'll just make sure you're doing
So
it.
there's no order written or anything like that, like
Well,
say you
it's
have
tough.
to pay or you
Yeah.
have to pay or.
No, I mean, even when we had the spill here down on, I can't remember the street. Crombie Street, same thing, you know, they wouldn't issue an order for that to, you know, clean it up.
Really?
Yeah, it was like 2,000 gallons.
So then we're left doing all the work and with only real one avenue to collect any money from.
Yeah. Through insurance. Right?
Through
through the, I guess, the person who had the accident, I guess, or the release, that's who you pursue, but yeah.
Had a comment, Stacy?
Yeah, just for the Brontes bill, even though there's, we didn't put a ordinary here, we're billing the people for that.
Yeah.
For our cost. So I think there are avenues for us to, for cost recovery in these situations.
Person who did it.
Now, we certainly have an advantage because it's someone that owns property in the municipality. What if it was someone passing through and something had happened either by mistake or intentionally? Is there any avenue then?
It's still, it's through insurance, right? So it's all liability, right? So commercial general liability will cover it, 'cause it's an accident, could be automobile, if it's an automobile issue. The risk you run into, and this can happen, is you don't have insurance. So it doesn't necessarily deal with a motorized vehicle, but typically a business will have commercial general liability. Right, so it's no different than, our good old building out here, our tractor building. I mean, that ultimately was, done through the individual adjusters, and that's how it should be done, but the cost should be done. But yeah.
This is another example of my frustration with the whole paint there. Same thing. Oh, same thing.
Well, and I guess if I can just follow up, I guess where my comments are coming from, it sounds like this particular thing is not new for this. That happened before, and that's where I guess you think that.
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's still, doesn't mean per se, just because the administrators come in and issue direction on what to do and not in order, doesn't mean that that person could not potentially be fined by the ministry. They don't do that right then and there, but they could. Right? Yeah, get involved in that though.
I appreciate the questions that you've answered for me anyway, so I just want to follow up. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any notice motions for maintenance? Any announcements? Councilor New?
Just wanted to congratulate the Brussels Bangers on a successful fundraising event for the recreation amenity being batting cage in Brussels, and thanks staff for working with a group that hadn't done an event like that in the past before, so to make sure it was a success. So thank you to staff as well.
I probably could have brought this up with the opening remarks, but I guess our last council meeting was prior to the Brussels Fair. When I got up there, I was shocked. I tried my best. Unfortunately, Paul is terrible for being up on stage and trying to give any comments to the public that do want to come in and look at what's going on. But the fact that they had all of that stuff for the kids to do, and even the firemen having that thing, I had my granddaughter there and she just thought this was the coolest thing going, where she got told how to do it, do this and do that. And she made a mistake with the hose the one time and sprayed one of the firemen, but that happens. But it was so amazing to see what goes on there, and the fact that it's a donation. If you want to give it, every family can show up and every family can participate. And I'm not trying to begrudge any other fair that we have in here in East, but I've said since the first day I went to a Brussels Fair, you cannot feel more at home than when you go to the Brussels Fair, because everybody in town just makes you feel like you're from town. That's just the way it is, and really appreciate that there. Bylaws, can I get a mover and seconder for bylaw 75? Moved by Councilor Fisher, second by Councilor Morrison, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 75 of 2024, a bylaw to appoint the fire chief to give first, second, third, and final readings, and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed to. All those in favor? And motion carries. Mover and seconder for bylaw 76, Councilor Morrison, wow. And second by Councilor Wilkie. That be it hereby resolved that bylaw 76, a bylaw to appoint a community emergency coordinator alternate be given first, second, third, and final readings and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion carries. Mover and seconder for number 77, Councillor Chartrand and Councillor Deal, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 77 of 2024, a bylaw to appoint a deputy fire chief, be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? And motion carries. Bylaw 78, mover and seconder. Councillor Deal, deputy mayor, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 78 of 2024, a bylaw to levy the cost of work undertaken on the Gordon Municipal Drain be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion carries. Bylaw 79, moved by Councillor Steffler, second by Councillor Dalton. That be it hereby resolved that bylaw 79 of 2024, a bylaw to levy the cost of work undertaken on the Mackenzie Municipal Drain be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? And motion carries. And bylaw 80, moved by Councillor Deal, second by Councillor Newell, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 80 of 2024, a bylaw to levy the cost of work undertaken on Pethick Municipal Drain, hope I pronounced that right, be given first, second, third, and final readings, and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? And motion carried.
Can I just ask a quick question on that?
Absolutely, sorry.
I'm looking at the total on Tucker Smith lands. I think that's all in McKillop. Is there a reason it's called?
Let me pull up that file.
Just seeing the location and the people, I think it's McKillop Roads and then,
That was the Pethick Municipal
Yeah.
Drain.
just so that it's clear. Where that might be.
Did you ever get an answer of the information you brought back? No. No. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like that is McKillop lands there from the map.
They would just be clear if it was, yeah. That was all. Okay.
Mover and a seconder for bylaw 81. Moved by Councillor Chartrand, second by Councillor Steffler, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 81 of 2024, a bylaw to levy the cost of work undertaken on the Vivian Municipal Drain be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Carried. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 82. Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Deal, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 82 of 2024, a bylaw to levy the cost of work undertaken on the Van Loo Municipal Drain be given first, second, third, and final readings, and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion carries.
I have one more question on this one too. Was
Sorry.
this a nuisance beaver? Is this what this all, because it's really small amount. Like, is this what happened?
Where's the 20?
Yep, that's,
Yeah.
It was a beaver.
yeah,
Do we usually see these come across?
yes.
Do we? Okay.
It's all part, I've never seen it either,
Well, when I
but
read that, I didn't know if there was more involved than the beaver, because I thought they just.
It could have been a repeat fever. Or one that kept coming back, because I don't think that has been a problem.
Well, I just thought there was maybe more to that.
They continually, yeah, like the dams removed and it
Yeah, they
brings
came
it
back.
back,
they
so,
put it back
They have,
the next morning.
yeah.
okay.
Hard workers.
So it was just, it just broke down to be pretty small.
Yeah.
Nickels and dimes, but we're not gonna complain, that's all I was thinking.
Can I get a mover and a seconder for bylaw 83, please? Moved by Councillor Steffler, second by Councillor Deal, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 83 of 2024, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion carries. And a mover and a seconder for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Deal, second by Councillor Dalton, that the time now being 7:39 PM on the regular meeting, do now adjourn until October 15th, 2024 at 6 PM. All those in favor?